Yo, what's up, everybody? This is BTR, Bees of the Rebel. Heard some big news. We have Triple G. He announced his fight against Dominic Wade, and I just want to get my thoughts on that. And here's the thing about that fight. This is going to be Triple G's 16th title defense, which is historic. It's the second most in middleweight history, behind, of course, Bernard Hopkins. Now, this is interesting because Triple G, in my opinion, once I heard of the fight, and then once I heard of the Canelo fight, with Amir Khan announced, and now Triple G announced his fight, first thing that made me think about was Marvin Hagler. Meaning, Marvin Hagler was the world champion. He was one of the best fighters of his generation, one of the best fighters of all time, arguably the best middleweight of all time, and never really got his just due. And partly because people were just afraid to fight him. And that's what's going on with Triple G. Triple G has the chance to snap Bernard Hopkins' record and probably get close to like a Joe Louis record of the most consecutive title defenses, which is 25 total, period. If people continue to duck and hide from him as they do. Canelo Alvarez is a great young fighter. I don't get the point of trying to make Triple G meet a weight limit or make this some sort of a catch weight. I don't get that. You're a middleweight champion, meaning that's 160. Triple G is a middleweight champion, 160. I figured two guys who are both middleweight champions of the world should figure out a way to try to unify those belts. And there should not be a catch weight involved. This should just be strictly about who is the best fighter in the world. Because it's not an idea of two guys moving up now. Triple G just fought Miguel Cotto. And Canelo just fought Miguel Cotto, and he just beat him pretty convincingly. He was a tough fight, of course, but I thought he won. And here's the thing too. It's not like back in the day where guys are making weight the night of the fight. Canelo's coming in 170, 175 plus. Triple G's gonna be about 171, 2, something like that, 73. And you have two great fighters in their prime, virtually in their prime. And even though Triple G's a little older, I haven't seen no slippage yet. Two great fighters. Triple G being undefeated, Canelo with one loss to Mayweather. Canelo's the biggest star in boxing right now. To me, it's as simple as that. And right now he controls boxing, and he kind of controls Triple G's legacy. Because Triple G's a great fighter. He's going to be probably Hall of Fame. 16 title defenses, and it creeped up on us fast. He just continues to knock guys out, and he fights with a regularity of a legend. He fights with a regularity of old school. He defends that title 3 to 4 times a year, and as long as he continues to do that, sometime by next year he will have snapped Bernard Hopkins' record, or he will tie it potentially this year. That's just his fight rate, which I respect. There's too much going on in boxing when it comes to guys ducking each other. I'm not calling no one scared. I'm not saying no one's afraid of no one. I don't think that these guys are afraid. What I do think, however, is that there's this mindset that if I'm fighting a tough competitor, I must get compensated for a certain amount of money, which I can respect that, because I can respect anybody who wants their money. But at the same time, whatever happened, they're just trying to be the best. Here's the thing: you guys are making millions of dollars per fight. Millions of dollars. If Canelo and Triple G, that fight happens, that will be that's going to be the biggest fight of the year if it does happen. And I'm talking about monetary wise. From a monetary standpoint, it's going to make the most money of the year. And I don't get why these two great fighters can't go out there and just try to make it happen. There's so much, when you keep talking about negotiations, and you keep talking about, there's so many things we got to work out. These two guys are great fighters. There's no reason that Canelo should be fighting Amir Khan, at least not right now. Though I respect Amir Khan for taking that fight, I wouldn't blame him for taking the fight. For one, it's a big opportunity, and as I said in my previous video, it's a win-win for Amir Khan, meaning that even if he loses, he wins, and if he wins, it's a huge win, it's a huge upset. But back to Canelo and Triple G, these two guys are great fighters, great for the sport of boxing, and we need the fight. It's a big fight. I think Canelo has a shot at beating Triple G, which is the funny part. I don't think it will be a wipeout. I know a lot of people think that Triple G is just somehow so much bigger than Canelo. Canelo's a pretty big guy, especially for 154. He was an oversized 154 fighter, and he's a solid, he's probably on target middleweight. So, and he, like I said, night of the fight, he's gonna come in around light heavyweight, which is around 175 or a little less. He's gonna come around there. So I always see this opportunity as I see these two guys colliding. Hopefully, I would say probably later on in the year, towards the end of the year, maybe September. I believe that's Mexican Independence Day, if I'm wrong, if I'm correct. And that should be a great fight. That should be a great fight. And once again, we have Triple G fighting guys who he shouldn't be fighting because he has to make a living, because he has to stay active, because he has to defend his titles, and he's fighting guys who he shouldn't be fighting because I'm not saying that Dominic Wade doesn't deserve to fight. He's undefeated, 18-0, I believe, good young fighter, but the fight for Canelo is what needs to happen, I think, and that's what you gotta respect Dana White for in the UFC, is the fact that he makes sure the fights happen when they need to happen, and that's how the fans want it. At the same time, it's a give and take, because would the Mayweather and Pacquiao fight have made as much money if they would have waited? I mean, if they would have made it on target, I don't know. I'm sure it would have made money. It still would have broke records, but would Mayweather have made $300 million in a fight? Would Pacquiao have made $200 million in a fight, or $150 million, whatever he made? That's a ridiculous amount, and there's so much. They made so much money to the point where even if whoever won, it didn't really matter. They both came out winners. And so I mean, patience and all of that I respect, because it makes you got to build it up. You got to build a blockbuster event like that, and it happens sometimes. Sometimes you don't get those fights when you need it, when you want them. But hopefully we do get that. And like I said before, you got to commend the UFC, because they make sure the fans get the fights that they want to see on a consistent basis, which is why boxing is always going to do better on pay-per-view when it comes to mega fights. But on a consistent level, UFC will do better more than likely for the foreseeable future, until there are a consistent level of great fighters facing each other. And that is BTR. That's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you for your time.